Derek Houston is an educational leadership and policy studies assistant professor at the University of Oklahoma, and he joins us now from Norman. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today. Now, first off, I just want to get your take on the protests that have been taking place across the U.S.
It's unsurprising. It's unsurprising given the tensions that have been built up over the past, say, 30 plus years, and given the rising tensions in income inequality, health inequality, access to resources. The wealthy have much, the rest have little, and it's unsurprising, especially given the intersection of this and the pandemic that is going on.
Well, that kind of brings me to talk about minorities and how they have to constantly overcome these hurdles for reasons they have no control over. And people of color, for example, struggled the most and was affected the most by this pandemic that we're trying to get through. Just give us some background of what this community has to deal with.
I think you're looking at years of systemic and systematic oppression regarding healthcare, access to healthcare, the healthcare systems, the affordability of healthcare. You're also thinking about the most marginalized individuals, and it's disproportionately Black, Latino, Native American individuals who are working in the service industry, or the industries that require daily interactions with other individuals. Those individuals are also working weekly and have to rely on weekly paychecks, which they can't afford to miss a day of work. And so on top of that, there's the access to healthcare. There's the underfunding of healthcare systems in under-resourced spaces. So reduction in healthcare in high majority minority places, but also in rural areas. I think there's going to be there's a spike that's starting in the rural populations of this country, and that's going to impact majority of white individuals.
Now, look, these protests that have been taking place for the past 5 days now have been largely compared to the Rodney King riots that took place back in 1992. But there's something about George Floyd's case that triggered people to protest at this level. Would you say this is the biggest, I guess we can now call, movement that's taken place when it comes to racism in America?
Oh, I think this movement is years in the making, and I think you're seeing evidence from 2013 and 14, maybe 2012 with Tamir Rice and the establishment of the Black Lives Matter movement. I think you're starting to see an evidence of an intersection of individuals that have been downtrodden and depressed and marginalized over time at the intersection of race, class, gender, health oppression. These are folks that are dealing with systemic and systematic issues. And I think you're starting to see a culmination of multiple individuals. I think you're starting to see a diversity of individuals in these crowds, which is unsurprising. I can't say it's unsurprising given what's been going on recently.
Mm-hmm. Now, people don't only, pardon me. Now, people don't only want the other 3 officers involved to be charged. There's a bigger picture here, and we all know these protests are going to eventually come to an end, but the problem is still going to be there. What needs to be done to fix this matter?
I think there's a desire by many to do so. I think there's ample evidence, and I said this earlier, that there's a diversity in the protesters and supporters of the protest. We're in a watershed moment where racial inequality, wealth inequality, and health inequality are rampant, yet as we see with the current White House and the leadership in the Senate, and also the support by many wealthy groups, that they're fighting to maintain control of distribution of resources. How we eradicate this is a tough question. I think eradication assumes that the core of this country is healthy when we remove toxic elements. But there's an argument that that the core is also toxic. So I think the foundation of this country is in and of itself toxic. The question is, are we willing to address the toxicity in the foundation of this core. We've seen over the past 50, 60 years many attempts to build on top of an unstable and unsustainable foundation, and yet we see in 2020 that this idea and this project is not working. So doing the work is going to be hard. It's going to take efforts and willingness to be critical at the top and at the bottom. And as I would like to quote Robin D.G. Kelly, it takes a willingness to love unconditionally, even through hurt. Love takes some struggle, and a willingness to be relentless in that struggle, and a desire to study. So we have to understand where the root of the problems are: historical, political, social, cultural, ideological, material, and at the economics space, in order to understand how we get rid of it and how we move forward. So it's going to take some time.
It definitely will take some time, but these protests have definitely started the conversation and reignited the long-standing movement of Black Lives Matter. Thank you so much for that, Derek Houston.
Thank you.